Right, two matches to wrap this weekend, starting with Friday's Interpro. It's time to start harping on rugby. Hello, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to Harpin On Rugby, where with the help of some fellow fans, I get the chance to harp on what's going on with Leinster, Ireland, and the wider rugby world. Now, it's a busy weekend for us with two matches to wrap, and first up, joining me to look back over Friday's URC action in Belfast is someone earning his 63rd Harpin cap. Welcome back to Mr. Tom Coleman.
Evening, Jeff. Thanks for having me back. And to you, David, too. How's it going?
Good to have you. And also with us, earning his fifth cap, is Mr. David Cordio. Hello, sir.
Good to be here, Jeff.
Indeed. Great to have you both. Right, let's crack on with our first feature match this weekend, which was, of course, Ulster v Leinster in week 7 of the 24-25 United Rugby Championship. It was played on Friday night at the Kingspan Stadium. It had, of course, been raining in Belfast, but it seemed to stop in time for kickoff, and it was Ross Byrne getting things underway, Tom.
Yeah, I suppose also just before we talk about the match, I think it's important to acknowledge it was a 100-year anniversary of Ravenhill, and they were celebrating it up there. Before the match, it was all the dignitaries and a bit of a meal and all that sort of stuff and it was Leinster was the first game back way back in 1924, so it was a nice 100 years to bring around, and it was even better probably to finish off and dampen their party by getting the win and a bonus point win at that. So yeah, fairness to Ulster, 100 years on Ravenhill, there's a good bit of history there. You can still see some of it as you're going into the ground. Look, it didn't take this game that long to get going. It felt a bit strange having a URC game the night before an Irish international, just with this fourth fixture, which we don't normally have for the Irish internationals. And yeah, it didn't take long for Ulster to get on the scoreboard. Um, I think looking back on this try on Monday, I think the Leinster coaching team won't be too happy. And in fairness to Doak had a nice little left-footed grubber kick, sort of half-footed grubber kick. It really turned the Leinster defence, and Ross Byrne was really scrambling to get across, but Larmour got in. And in fairness to Larmour, he made good ground. Like whatever in those situations, it's all about trying to get your defence back on side, and he made some good yardage. And we got to former ruck just outside the 22, I think, or inside the 20. But Luke failed to find touch off that kick, and it sort of came back on Leinster straight away. Werner Koch, the South African signing from the Sharks, made a good carry, and then Treadwell carried. And to be honest with you, the next few phases by Ulster were quite slow. This is the annoying thing about this try. I'm sure the Red Hand, if they're listening, will be delighted with how Ulster got the try and Carson got a try in the corner. But from a Leinster point of view, the two phases before the try, it was slow ball. We had loads of time to set our defence, and yet we still found ourselves isolated out on the wing. So yeah, two phases, two slow balls, and but Ulster able to get out, and we had plenty of time to set the D. Young Osborne bit in a little bit. I wouldn't fully blame him on this, and sort of isolated. Jimmy O'Brien again bit in, and Carson ran for a try into the corner, and then it was a good conversion by Doak. But yeah, really soft try, and it stemmed from a poor exit initially, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm sure it's one for the video review on Monday. In saying that, I'd say if Ulster are reviewing their video review on Monday, they'll be looking at the try they gave away straight, basically from the kickoff. We sort of hit, from the restart 7-0 down. A good long restart, sort of just about 10 metres out from the Ulster try line, pretty much centre of the pitch. Ulster were a bit messy about and getting the ball away, and I think it was Young Deeney had a bit of a half charge down on Duck. And then there was a bit of a mess trying to get control of the ball, and Duck ended up knocking on. And I suppose we seen then the first sign of some of the platform that might give Leinster the bonus point win. We didn't really realise at the time. But we had a series of scrums. We had three scrums in a row off that knock on. The first one was a reset. Second one was a pen. Salami really had the loose head in real difficulty on that one. And on the third scrum, again, there was pressure on Slimani on the far side of the scrum. And it just enabled, it enabled Leinster to slightly turn the back of the Ulster scrum away from the posts and that made Luke McGrath's job, who just picked off the base of the scrum and just went around the corner, which seemed like an easy dot down, but he can be buying points afterwards for his tight head and the lock on that side for sort of putting pressure on and turning that Ulster scrum so the back row was sort of half taken out of the game. And we'd seen a few times during the game, Timothy's lightning quick at getting off the base of that side of that scrum, sometimes even before the scrum is finished, because he has a habit of trying to get away. But all the work credit there to the tight head and the tight head lock on that side, and it seemed an easy little dot down for McGrath. So yeah, that made it. That was a good try to get, and I said Ulster would be very disappointed with giving a try away straight away after getting their own try. Um, it was a period then of sort of just what I'd say happened a few times during the first half. Ulster's fairly undynamic carrying by their forwards. There weren't. It was very one-out runner stuff from Ulster. I felt and easy to defend. So that's something Murphy should be I think we'll be looking at. It's just very one-out, and Leinster just had to continuously fold. And as long as the discipline were there by Leinster all night, Ulster were struggling to make any sort of headway in that area. And that continued all the way through the second half. I'm sure David will touch on a bit of it as well. Just I thought they were very undynamic up front on trying to generate fast ball or generate some sort of go forward ball. But I suppose the next major moment in that game was, I think it was uh, another indifferent box kick from us, from Luke. Sometimes if you were, people say box kicks and it's hard, picking on the nine. This neither had height nor distance, and it was very easy. I think it was Moore had loads of time to run onto the ball. The last thing you want to do with a box kick is let one of the back three run on at pace, uncontested, and catch it without stopping. And that's what happened. So it was a poor box kick from that point of view. Now, when Moore did carry it, I think Ulster probably slightly feel aggrieved that, and Jack Conan will be delighted that Brian Deeney infringed at the next phase, because it looks like Conan had a bit of a late hit on Moore. I know Alan O'Connor was asking the referee on the night to have a look at it, even though they were looking at the Deeney on Morgan incident, which I'm talking about here. But look, Conan seemed to hit more late. I think Werner Koch took the next phase up. A bit of a good scrag tackle from him, and he flicked it onto the Ulster's new Aussie 10. And just it was the number 10 with a good sidestep and the big tall Wexford second row, who Brian Deeney, who just sort of mismatched and was head on head. Um, Now Ulster obviously got 3 points from the penalty. Look, it went for a yellow card and it wasn't upgraded to red. Probably feel about right on it, but it is something that we're trying to say it's on the onus on the defence to try and adjust their height and stuff like that, and probably there was enough mitigation for Genie to get away with it, so to speak. But it was clumsy more than anything else, and but it all came, the way I look at these sort of things from a Leinster point of view, it all came from sort of giving Ulster really fast front foot ball from a bad box kick, and it just enabled both Moore, then Cock, and then Morgan to hit that line at pace. And on a bit of a wet night, when you run into somebody taller, these things can happen. So I think Leinster, a few phases beforehand could have stopped that. But look, it was a good. Didi took his 10 minutes in the bin, and Ulster stretched out their lead. Um, Shortly after that, our scrum continued to do well again. Ross had a good penalty off as we won a scrum against the head, and the scrum both props were doing well at this stage.
That was a 7-man scrum, wasn't it? We didn't have a
Yeah, it
number
was
8 for that
seven-man
one.
scrum. Yeah,
Yeah.
because we had a couple of injuries in the middle of that half as well. Boyle went off. And we were thinking, it's a pity. This is one of these guys. We're hoping it's going to be his breakout season, but thankfully he came back on. And obviously, poor old Will Connor went during this period of time as well, which was really unfortunate. He's a guy who just seems to can't get a run and play at all. So yeah, from that scrum, that 7-man scrum, Ross kicked it over, and I think that made it 10-10. And I suppose the next moment of note was Doak's pen to make it 13-10. Again, Leinster won't be too happy with this. We again got a scrum penalty and we kicked the ball out near the halfway line for a line out. Line it was a bit messy. It looked like we're trying to take a quick one, but it seemed again like everybody wasn't clued in. And it's funny when I was reviewing the game, I was thinking of Joe McCarthy's quoting post match against Australia, where they were making lineup calls up on the go, which is a strange thing to say at that level. Even at the level I coach at, we don't do that. But yeah, look, it was a bit of a messy line out. We ended up giving away a breakdown pen. Um, in that series of play, and it allowed Ulster to kick to the corner and put some pressure on. Look, Ulster ended up getting 3 points because we strayed offside to make it 13-10. But I'd probably still refer back to Ulster's lack of sort of, not very dynamic but carrying the ball forward. It was easy to defend, and we just gave it was somebody, one of the lads, I think I don't know, it was Mangan, straight offside, just at the side of a rock, and it was more laziness than anything else, and been really under pressure. So I think Ulster have a lot of work to do on their sort of carrying up front, just been very undynamic. Just sort of half ebbed and flowed for a bit like that. I suppose one other sad moment to note, young Moxham got a nasty looking injury. There's the talk of the plastic pitches, as we call it, and we don't know if that's related. It ended up with a bit of rejigging for Ulster because Moore had gone that's as well, and Cooney ended up going on the wing, and he didn't seem happy to be there all night anyway. And Leinster's did target him a lot in the second half, and David might touch on that. And I suppose the line out, our second half or first half ended with Treadwell stealing a line out on the Ulster 10 metre line when we looked like we might get some sort of platform to go in at halftime, either level or slightly ahead. But I think Leinster, this is a really, really tricky fixture considering the amount of players we were missing and some of the players that we had to play in certain positions. But I'd seen enough in the first half to think we might see this out. We were dominant in a good few areas, and I wasn't overly impressed by Ulster's attack. And I thought if we, just kept the discipline going and kept a few phases together, uh, gaps would come. And ultimately, the story of the weekend is maybe some changes at 9 seems to be the vibe, depending on which team you support. But definitely, I think, when Young Gun came on in second half, he added that impetus, and those gaps started to form, and we were able to take advantage of it. But yeah, it was 13-10 at half time, and I think even though we were behind, we were in a good position in the game.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, a lot happened there. I mean, Ulster were really struggling at the scrum, like you say. Somani was really locking down his side. He was also giving away some silly penalties. A lot of those penalties that happened in that first half were him. We were wondering just afterwards, is he like his advantage to Leinster in that somebody who can come on around 60, 65 minutes and just lock down the scrum for the last few minutes. Rather as opposed to someone who's going to start and, maybe do well in the scrum, but is also not getting around the pitch, getting the work done, maybe, giving away penalties and stuff. So that's, it might have, this start might have shown us his like the value he can have for us, especially in Champions Cup. Yeah, there was and Connors as well. He just has no luck with injuries at all. We just have to see what happens with the report on Monday. But he seemed pretty dejected going off. But of course, Ulster had some injury issues as well with Moxham. That did look pitch related. Obviously, we can't say for sure, but it did look that way. On the yellow card for Genie, it was definitely a card. I thought red would have been harsh because it was a last second pop pass. And when your man got the ball, he was literally right in front of him. Now he still should get lower. You should get low for a tackle, but it was a last second kind of thing. And there was a similar incident later as well with Timony as well. So I think they almost balanced each other out.
I think Brian, having played a little bit with Wexford minor footballers, probably still thinks you're allowed to go that high on lads, but unfortunately not.
Well, if he took back Gaelic now, he wouldn't know. They're after changing all the rules, haven't they? For next season?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
But anyway, no, sir. But listen, So when you're under that much pressure in the scrum, you definitely don't expect to be leading at halftime. But as you say, there was just a couple of little system errors in Leinster's defence and let them in, and the silly penalties as well. What did you make of that first half, David?
It was a lot tighter than I think Leinster have been used to this season. It was a strong start from Ulster to get the first score, and I think it's become a kind of a theme at this stage that Leinster can have it quite easy for quite a few games, but they go up the road to Belfast and Ulster decide to have something to say about it. They weren't able to get the kind of dominance they usually get. We've gotten used to now in the last few games. Obviously pre-Autumn Nations, that Leinster would have their try bonus points signed, sealed, and delivered before the halftime whistle. To be kept to only 10 points and to be actually down going into the second half was definitely a change of pace for them. Possibly not a bad one, given we're going into Europe and things might start to get tougher from here on out. It was a fairly brutal first half by the standards. Leinster had, I think it was 2 HIAs, and both of them ended up returning. But Ulster were going through back subs faster than they could replace them, and I think it's hard not to. It's hard for any team really when you start going that deep on subs, particularly that early in the game. The longer it goes on, the more that's going to show. So, I think it maintained the team, even though whatever, but how the game ended up, it maintained the theme of Ulster showing up when Leinster come to town, and in this first half anyway. Leinster might have felt themselves a little bit wanting for the kind of dominance they've been used to.
Yeah, and when you compare to the first game against them last season, which that was at the RDS, but I mean they were prepared for that. They had a plan. They had worked at this new Leinster trying out this new Nienaber defense, and they had a set a way to get around it, and it succeeded. I think it was 3 times. They got 3 tries from that night, but this time it wasn't exactly the same as that. We were sort of kind of giving them the chances. It was a very well taken try. It was very well finished. They got it quickly through the hands and got to they got the space on the wing and got in, but it wasn't the same kind of lead that they built last season. But anyway, a lead it was, and at halftime, like we say, it was Ulster 13, Leinster 10. But before we return to the pod, first a little reminder of all the different places you'll find us in the rugby sphere. We're also doing a wrap pod for Ireland v Australia this weekend. So to get access to all our latest content, as well as our presence on all the different social media platforms, you can bookmark us at linktree/Harpin On Rugby. The mass migration from X to Blue Sky seems to be going nicely, so do follow us there if you can. And please be sure to comment, like, share, and subscribe as needed. And so, with a 3-point lead to defend, Ulster got the second half underway, David.
They did. They took the restart cleanly. Leinster cleared from inside their own 22. There was a chase up, but Ulster managed to regain possession just outside Leinster's half. Here we saw Leinster's D, which they've become kind of famous for, pushing Ulster back inside their own half and leading to a penalty turnover, which Luke McGrath took quickly. Making his way up inside the Ulster 10-metre. Leinster went through some phases until McGrath kicked into the corner, gathered by deputising winger John Cooney, who passed inside to Stuart Moore, who managed to clear down the line. Leinster go for the line-out. It was a good day off the lines for them. They went through phases, working their way back up into Ulster's 22, and Andrew Osborne carried very well up the left wing, but it ended up being called back for a penalty, and this time it was Nick Timoney who found himself sent to the bin. Leinster, off the back of this penalty, went to the corner, went through the phases in the Ulster 22, but to Ulster's credit, they managed to turn it over, kick for touch, and then clear off the back of that ensuing line out. But Leinster, as became the habit over the night, decided to go through the phases, played back up into the Ulster half, and managed to draw another penalty, which they again kicked down the line. There was an initial maul just to draw in defensive players, and then Leinster went wide. And Jimmy O'Brien carried very well up the left wing and almost sent Andrew Osborne, who's hauntingly similar to his older brother Jamie, just short of the Ulster line. But some Leinster quick tight phases drew enough of the Ulster defensive system in, and Jordan Lammer was able to dance his way across almost right under the posts for Leinster's second try. Ulster then went for their restart. Leinster cleared, keeping the ball in play, and then a bit of kick tennis ensued where John Cooney returned the kick, but too long, and Leinster marked it. So Leinster returned it, and John Cooney again kicked it too long, and Leinster marked again. Finally, it found Stuart Moore, who managed to kick it just outside the Leinster 22, and Leinster were able to regather and go through phases. But Jordan Larmour ends up bundled into touch on the right wing, and Nathan Doak kicks clear off the Ulster liner, but Larmour, never one to compound mistakes, manages to jig his way back up the field and passes the ball. The ball ends up passed to Jimmy O'Brien, who kicks it out on the full, leading to an Ulster lineout deep inside the Leinster territory. Ulster took that opportunity to make 3 forward substitutions and bring Nick Timoney back from the sin bin. They took the lineout, and Nathan Doak attempted a very ballsy little chip over the top, and it was rewarded when Andrew Osborne knocked it on, and leading to an Ulster scrum inside the Leinster 22. And also went through some quick phases, and then a very nice offload let Ben Carson twirl his way across the Leinster try line, and Ulster retook the lead. Leinster restarted, and Ulster cleared it to touch nice and quickly. Leinster take the line out, go through phases once again. Phase play seems to be the name of their game for the night. Working their way just outside the Ulster 22, and then drawing what was becoming a customary penalty at this stage. And once again went into the corner. Leinster were not interested in taking their points on this night. And after some quick passing and a very, very nice draw of the last defender and offload from Jordan Larmour, Jimmy O'Brien was able to get over for Leinster's third try, which unfortunately Ross Byrne was unable to convert. Ulster took the restart, and again Luke McGrath kicks directly into touch. Ulster take their line out, go through phases, but Leinster's Leinster's rush D manages to push them right back into their own half, and then a Leinster charge down regained possession for the men in blue. Leinster go through a couple of phases, and when territory is not to be got, they go for a crossfield kick, but this time it's gathered by Michael Lowry, who's able to dance his way back up outside the Ulster 22, and Ulster are able to clear it, but it only gets as far as Jimmy O'Brien, who sends it wide. Ross Byrne attempts a grubber kick, which is blocked and somehow regathered by Leinster, but Ulster are able to force a turnover and very nearly break loose up the left wing, but a last minute Leinster scramble tackle manages to stop them dead. Ulster almost get out of the half, but knock it on, and it's a Leinster scrum. Leinster managed to win the penalty there. Ross Byrne once again kicks down the line just outside the 22. The Leinster line out, but a forward pass off the back of that gives the ball back to Ulster. Ulster are able to clear off the back of their scrum back up to halfway, but Leinster really with the wind in the back at their sails at this point go through the phases and are back up to the inside the Ulster 10-meter line. More Leinster phase play using a very nice Ross Byrne crossfield kick forces, I think it was Stuart Moore, to take the ball dead in just outside Ulster's 5-meter line, giving Leinster a very promising attacking line, off the top of which after a nice move James Cohan is able to get over for Leinster's try bonus point score, which again unfortunately Ross Byrne is unable to convert, which keeps it a 1-score game. Ulster take their restart but are penalised for the kick chase for falling afoul of the new kick chase laws, interfering with I think Max Deegan's attempt to regather the ball. Leinster kick to touch back inside the Ulster half, but the Leinster line is not straight, so Ulster are able to get a scrum off the back of which they get a scrum penalty, and they're right back inside the Leinster half. There's an Ulster line out and phase play to just inside the Leinster half, but Ulster are pushed back, but are not deterred and continue through the phases, managing to draw a penalty from Leinster this time and kicking just inside the Leinster 22 with just 2 minutes to go, 78 minutes on the clock. But Leinster are able to get up and disrupt the Ulster line out, regaining possession and kicking clear. Michael Lowry threatens to break up the field, but he's stopped just short of the Leinster 10-meter line, and Leinster managed to turn it over cleanly. Clinton Gunn attempts to clear, but is blocked down. However, Leinster managed to retain possession, and Ulster infringe. Ross Byrne kicks for touch. Leinster line out, taken cleanly, clock in the red, and Clinton Gunn kicks it dead. Final score: Leinster 27, Ulster 22. It's a Leinster try bonus point win. They were very happy about that, but considering the absolute disastrous injury crisis, I think Ulster will be very happy to take a losing bonus point out of that one.
Yeah, we had for our preview, we had Mark Jackson. It's great to have him back doing pods, and he pointed out, looking at the starting lineups, he pointed out our back three and said that'd probably be key. And there's no question. I mean, Andrew Osborne had a decent outing himself. I thought he took a lot of initiative, but of course, when you've got Jimmy O'Brien and Jordan Larmer, they just combined really well. They it was more than just their tries. They were both very strong. Also, you mentioned our lineouts. I think Max Deegan was almost like it was almost a one man lineout show from him. He was mostly the target throughout the game. I think he stole one or two as well, but he was mostly the target until that one at the end where they had that set move. They gave it to Conan, and he put it straight down off the top to Cohan coming through. That was a really slick move and a brave call in a tight game in the 70th minute, and it just came out perfectly.
Stark contrast to the national side, they might want to get him in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so there was that. And on the Ulster side of things, their try, I thought I was impressed with their centres. Carson and Postlethwaite, I thought they worked together. And there was sort of a double spin at the line there for them. They combined well for that try. You can talk about defense and stuff and all that kind of things, but when you got someone executing as well as that and combining as well, it's not that easy, and Ulster still, and unfortunately a couple of missed kicks from Ross there at the end kept it kind of closer than it possibly should have, but I think the way we talk, like you say, having Cooney did not look comfortable on the wing at all. That was, and I mean, before he was injured, he just, and from the start of that second half, and we were going for him on that wing. We were targeting. It seemed like it was a sensible plan. You talked about that quick tap from Luke at the start of the half. Now you get that sense that they spoke about it at halftime. Okay, we need to up the tempo here, and then we get a penalty. He takes a quick tap, but I should not be doing that from the start of the game. It's like we said it before. It's like Luke and Ross. They're different. They have their own game. They have their own style. They suit a certain kind of team. But the way Leinster and Ireland are playing now, it's a high tempo kind of thing, and it's not really suited. So they needed that. They needed that injection after halftime.
I said it to a friend during the match. I'm just recalling it now that and I only noticed it with Luke McGrath in particular during that game, and Luke's been criticised for the qualities of his passes, but in particular, as you mentioned there, the speed of ball that he provides, and I think I only really realised it watching both how he performs off the back of scrums as well as how he performs at rucks, is that I don't know if he's doing it consciously or if it's just bred into him so much that he does it subconsciously. Luke McGrath approaches the back of every ruck waiting for the opposition to commit an infringement.
Yes.
He gives a half beat just before.
But he used to always do that ever since he started.
Their hands are going and he's going. Is there going to be a penalty here? Is there going to be a penalty here? No, and then he passes. And that half beat just slows down. Gibson Park, if there's a penalty going, he'll take it, but he'll push you out of the way to pass the ball before asking the ref to penalise you for being in the way. And I think that's what's really slowing Lukey down.
Absolutely. What did you make of that second half, Tom?
Yeah, I think where Leinster were maybe on the wrong side of possession and territory in the first half, they completely turned that around in the second half. I think we ended up with 62% territory in the second half. We were taking advantage of Ulster's sort of unusual backline and hemming them in a bit. And as I mentioned a few times, their carrying game was easy enough to defend, so we were forcing it back into their half and sort of making them play out, and then jumping on attacks on the backs of turnovers and stuff, or on the back of penalty infringements. So yeah, it was a bit of a sea change on territory and possession. Really forced Ulster into making mistakes, and it sort of got that momentum. I do think there was an injection of pace from some of the substitutions to come on, and Gunn in particular played really well when he came on. I thought he's just continuously looking for, and I agree with David wholeheartedly. Luke tends to look for, he takes a half a beat and then he takes a half a step before he passes two, so there's 2 beats gone. Don't like criticizing players for criticizing sake, but we've said this before.
Well, you're comparing him to Gibson Park, who is almost ready for the next phase before the last one's over. It's different styles.
You can have 9s that don't suit 10s at any age level, you know what I mean? And sometimes the 9 and the 12 have to get used to it, the 10 plays and stuff. That's, Luke has so many caps for Leinster. He's a long serving, I'm bet sure he's working on his game even at this stage of his career to try and change the way he plays. Interesting one, and David touched in the first half that little when Ulster were outside the 22 and they did this little mini bomb kick. The Ulster didn't read it properly, but they actually had that play designed for the night in question. Because if you want to go online and try and find some 100-year-old rugby, that was quite commonplace for Ulster or for players to just Gary own it from just outside the 22 into we'll call it the try zone. And so they called it, there was a 1924 move specifically designed for the night. I don't know, the fact that we know that now, they're going to go back to it. But I admired him for coming up with a little play on a 100-year anniversary to sort of a dedication to guys playing rugby 100 years ago. But it didn't quite come off. But you can see what they were doing, trying their hat tip to fellas in longer shorts and longer sleeves 100 years ago. But yeah,
mustaches.
yeah, mustaches. But with November and all. But yeah, look, it was. I wasn't too sure we get the bonus point in the end, especially in the first half. I did think we would win, for the reasons I've outlaid. But look, it's a bonus point win again, and as you said, it's a game we slipped up on, which cost us a lot last year. Really, in hindsight, I know it's easy to look back on games you lost when you end up losing the semi-final, and should have we been in Dublin, etc., etc. But look, it's definitely an extra points up from last year in the compared to the fixture before, so we'll absolutely take it, and we can't complain about being on maximum points after this number of games. And yeah, it's exciting time now between the Heineken Cup and the Interpros, and Geordie Barrett in town. He was up there, water boy, and kicking the ball around on the pitch before the game. So
hey, if you're going to have a water boy, might as well be an All Black, sure, why not?
Might as well be an All Black, yeah. Might as well be an All Black, yeah. I did say at one stage we had a penalty just inside, sort of 56 meters out. I was thinking it'd be a good time to just NFL him and bring him on for a 56-yard field goal and then bring him back off again. But unfortunately, the laws of rugby don't allow. But yeah, delighted to get their win up there, and yeah, it's another win under the belt, and that's all that matters this end of the season or this time.
Yeah, I mean, as I was watching it, it didn't feel like a bonus point win. When Cohan got the try, I remember having to check back my notes. Is that 1, 2, 3, 4? How many? I wasn't sure. But listen, like you say, we'll take it, especially away from home. And I think we did deserve the win. Overall, especially the way we changed things around after halftime. But Ulster did, they came away with the losing bonus point in the end themselves. So as we say, the final score was Ulster 20, Leinster 27. Elsewhere in the United Rugby Championship, there were mixed results for the other provinces against South African opposition. Connacht couldn't recover from a 21st-minute red card to Sean Jansen in a 14-28 loss to the Bulls, while Munster did Leinster a favour by handing the high-flying Lions a second successive defeat. Meanwhile, Glasgow just about stayed ahead of the Scarlets at Scottstown, and there were also wins for Zebra, Edinburgh, Cardiff, and the Sharks, all of which means after 7 rounds, Leinster is still top with 34 points from a possible 35. The rest of the top 8 are Glasgow, Bulls, Cardiff, Lions, Sharks, Edinburgh, and Connacht. Worth mentioning here, those South African sides still have a game in hand, and while Ulster and Munster sit 10th and 11th, respectively. Well, going back to our feature match in the Kingspan afterwards, Jack Honan said, quote, "We looked a little flat, lacked a bit of energy, but we got the juices flowing a bit more in the second half," end quote. And from the fans' point of view, at the full-time whistle, Jackie McEachern said this on our Facebook page, quote, "After last year, I'm so happy to get 5 points in Belfast, but it's frustrating that Burns' conversion misses wind up meaning Ulster get the losing bonus point. Jimmy O'Brien was great," end quote. Do you disagree, or would you have said the same thing a different way? Well, we always leave a post open on the Facebook page after Leinster and Ireland matches. Why don't you join in the conversation next time? All of which brings us to our final thoughts, starting with Tom.
Yeah, no, as I've touched on already, look, absolutely brilliant to get a win. It's always a hard game up there. David rightly pointed out, Ulster do always seem to come to town when they play us. And, it is the oldest derby on the country. It was the first game back in the day. So, yeah, great to get a win. Great to get some players back on the pitch again. Jimmy O'Brien and Jordan Larmour were really important to how we played, especially in that second half, and some of the scramble stuff that we're doing in the first half. And they're pushing for places now in the big matches, even with all the returning internationals. Yeah, no, a good match all around. I think still plenty to work on. It did look a bit unstructured at times, and it did look like, as you say, it didn't look like we're going to get a bonus point win, or it didn't feel like a bonus point win. Um, but yeah, like any win on the road, especially with Ireland playing the day before or the day after, I should say, in Lansdowne, with the number of Leinster players down there, absolutely fantastic win. And, you know, still, I suppose, not jury out is the wrong word on Slimani. Um, Look, he's the sort of fella that, when you've 20 minutes to go in La Rochelle and he has to come on and big French Parker trying to bully you, and if he can lock it out, you know, that's where he'll know his stuff, and that's where that sort of takes the pressure off Clarkson if that's the circumstances. And that's the 1% Leinster are looking for, really. So I'll hold fire on him till the end of the season, and I'm sure he's helping a lot of the young props on both sides is to have somebody of his experience around the camp, and he seems to be very very well got in the camp. When you see some of the footage and some of the pictures coming out, he seems to have found a long lost friend in his twin Michael Milne from Offaly. I'm sure they're cousins somehow from Offaly and Algerian descent, but yeah, again, having a guy like him, experience, and Snyman coming off the bench, which was another big boost. That quality of player and international, just with so many younger guys around, it does make a difference. Even though we tend to focus in on their errors, and at this stage, value for money, sure, what's that really to us? You know what I mean? It's irrelevant at this stage. But yeah, no, as I said, great win overall, and still some questions about the pecking order at half back and the way Leinster play, and the way Leinster want to play. So there's a bit of card shuffling to go on at 9 and 10, when everybody's there, and it'll be interesting to see what way the cards are put down at the table in what order. Yeah, so interesting times selection wise ahead over the next 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned RG there, because I mean, you could say this was his quietest performance for Leinster. I remember when the team that, I mean, that's not a he didn't. I'm not saying he did poorly. It's just for him. When we were losing, I just figured, well, RG's not on yet. He's probably going to come on and just basically demolish them. And we were looking for that kind of impact. And he did some good offloads and stuff, and he did it. He got involved in and stuff, but it was.
I don't know if you've seen the ad. I don't know if you've seen the ad about the dad getting called up to the fifths, because
yeah.
he strikes me as the type of fella that got a text during the week going, "What? I have to go where? I've just come back from wherever South Africa were playing the week before," and he was going, "Okay, So I'd say he was reluctant dad in the car going, "Shit, I have to go to Belfast," but.
I mean, you can totally imagine him just literally arriving at the stadium in the morning without even having trained during the week and just being able to go on and do a job, But no, it's not a bad person to bring on anyway, whatever the situation. David, your final thoughts?
I think it's a game that Leinster are going to look back on and say job done. This is it 6 bonus points from 7 wins. The perfect streak is maintained. It's a lot is made of the fact that the trophies aren't won in November, but given the timing of the Leinster South Africa tour right after the Six Nations this year, you'd have to imagine that will be a diminished squad that heads down there. So the more points that can be picked up now, the bigger a buffer that can be built up now, can only put us in good stead as the end of the tournament comes along. I thought Ulster will be. I mean, it's always disappointing to lose at home, but I think given the injury crisis they suffered, they'll be happy enough that they managed to hold it. It could have gotten a lot more ugly for them. And I don't think John Cooney will be wanting to spend much more time with the wing, but to come away with losing bonus points, is not the worst outcome for them. And there were large sections of that game where they had Leinster under really serious pressure. Even when Leinster did manage to retake the lead not even retake the lead, take the lead in the second half, it wasn't long before also we're right back on top of them. So I think they'll like that. Richie Murphy certainly should be happy with the kind of the temperament that his team has shown this season so far. I'd be interested to see a little bit more of the young Humphreys lad. He got on towards the end there. Didn't really see enough of them to get a really good read, but I would like to see a little bit more of him. Snyman, as you said, it wasn't a really star-studded performance for him, but I think it highlights the fact that in the days, obviously there was an overlap with the Autumn Nation series. This weekend a little bit different because the Australia game was outside that window. but it opens up the fact that this is a guy who, when Ireland players are away for Six Nations or whatever international rest, this is a guy who's still going to be with the squad. And you think back to someone like Issa Nasawi, having a player of that caliber in the squad when everyone else is away can hold a rabble of 14 other young fellas together. And thinking again of that South Africa squad, an opportunity for him to maybe link up with the family back home, but also if we send a younger team down there with him at its core and Rabah Slimani to hold down the scrum, it could really change the look of that trip. So look, I think it wasn't a perfect performance, but at the end of the day, try bonus point win in Belfast. There can't be too many complaints about that, and I think if I had one takeaway from this, I'd like to see a lot more fit and gun.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, I think the worst thing about this weekend for Leinster was the fact that international was on, and it's literally 1 week before the Champions Cup starts. You would have liked that buffer of an extra week, just to get to reassimilate the players back in. I mean, our first game isn't until Sunday, so I suppose that might help a little bit. But otherwise, bonus point away in the road, and it continues the maximum start to the season. You can't really have too many complaints. Okay, well, listen, lads, we're going to leave it there. Many thanks again to Tom and David for joining me, and great job, and hope to have you both on again soon. Thanks, lads.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
As for our next batch of Harpin, well, you won't be waiting long since we've another pod to record, that being Ireland via Australia. We're recording that Monday evening, so be sure to follow us on any or all of our social media platforms, which you'll find at linktree/Harpin On Rugby. In the meantime, stay safe, everyone. Slán.